There's a love story buried beneath decades of rock and roll legend, one that shaped the sound of a generation and left behind echoes that still haunt the music. Stevie Nicks, the queen of mystique and melody, has finally cracked open the vault of her heart, revealing a long-kept emotional truth that even her most loyal fans never saw coming. At 76, she's lived through fame, heartbreak, and reinvention. But it's the silent ache of a love lost that has lingered through it all, one that never truly faded. It all began in a California high school, where a young Nicks first locked eyes with Lindsey Buckingham. Their chemistry wasn't just romantic, it was electric, musical, destiny. From a senior event performance to forming the band Fritz, they shared stages, dreams, and a passion that would soon explode onto the global stage. As their voices wove together in harmony, a legend was born. But behind the spotlight, they were simply two souls colliding, creatively, emotionally, sometimes painfully. Their bond became the core of the Buckingham-Nicks duo. Though their 1973 album didn't make waves commercially, it caught the ear of Mick Fleetwood, launching them into Fleetwood Mac. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, one that would also fracture their relationship. Fame can be intoxicating, but it can also tear people apart. And as their fame soared, their love unraveled. While crafting the iconic Rumors album, their breakup became songwriting fuel. Nicks channeled her heartbreak into Dreams, a hauntingly poetic anthem of sorrow, while Buckingham hit back with the fiery Go Your Own Way. The result? One of the best-selling albums of all time, born out of real anguish. Here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Because even though their romance ended, their musical bond never did. They performed side by side for decades, trading glances, harmonies, and pain. That unresolved tension, that lingering heartache, only deepened their mystique and drew millions in. And when the cameras weren't rolling, Nicks faced the emotional cost of loving someone she could no longer hold close. But Stevie's story doesn't stop with Buckingham. Just as her fame was peaking, she crossed paths with J.D. Souther, a rising star known for crafting some of the Eagles' biggest hits. Their connection was magnetic, two artists who knew how to turn pain into poetry. The spark between them may have been brief, but it ignited a creative flame in Stevie that transformed her songwriting forever. He understood the chaos of fame, the loneliness behind the curtain. And though their relationship didn't last, it left a lasting mark. This wasn't just another romance, it was a turning point. Souther came with insight and status in the male-dominated music world, where Nicks had to claw her way to respect. She saw how male artists like Souther were celebrated for their genius, while women like her were often reduced to their romantic ties. That disparity lit a fire in Stevie. It wasn't enough to be talented, she had to be undeniable. And she was. She used her connection with Souther not as a crutch, but as a mirror to reflect her growing ambition. She would not be someone's plus one. She would be the headline act. That mindset poured into her lyrics, songs that spoke to independence, identity, and longing. Tracks like After the Glitter Fades and Has Anyone Ever Written Anything for You carry the emotional fingerprints of that era. Stevie didn't need to name names. Her voice said everything. Her relationships became chapters in a bigger narrative, one of a woman finding strength in vulnerability and identity in heartbreak. But no chapter was more complicated than her involvement with Mick Fleetwood, her bandmate and longtime friend. What began as camaraderie spiraled into a romantic entanglement that even they struggled to explain. Their affair, kept hidden from the band, collided with ongoing emotional fallout from their past loves and the high-stakes chaos of Fleetwood Mac's fame. It wasn't just scandalous, it was emotionally volatile. And yet from that chaos emerged some of the band's richest, most emotionally layered work. Behind the velvet shawls and stage lights, Stevie Nicks was building an empire. Her career as a solo artist skyrocketed. But she wasn't just a performer. She was a savvy businesswoman. Over the decades, Stevie invested in prime real estate in Los Angeles, including a multi-million-dollar Pacific Palisades estate. She's been seen in everything from classic Mercedes-Benz models to sleek Bentleys, and her taste in luxury extends to timepieces. She's rumored to favor Cartier and vintage Rolex watches that match her bohemian meets elegant persona. But the real luxury is in how she's protected herself. Stevie has reportedly maintained extensive insurance coverage, health, tour cancellations, and even policies protecting her vocal cords, her most valuable asset. She's also dabbled in investments, with ties to music publishing rights and royalties that ensure steady income. Her net worth, hovering around $120 million, is proof of not just talent, but calculated longevity. And her most significant financial lesson? Own your work, protect your voice, and build a brand that survives even when the spotlight dims. Today, Stevie is more than a singer. She's an icon, a woman who turned pain into poetry, love into legacy. Her story is one of resilience, reinvention, and relentless pursuit of self. She's lived through the highs of fame and the lows of heartbreak, but never lost sight of who she was: an artist, a dreamer, a survivor. In the smoky haze of the late 1970s, as Fleetwood Mac reached meteoric fame with Rumors, something even more volatile than success stirred beneath the surface, an affair that would forever reshape the emotional DNA of their music. Stevie Nicks, fresh from the unraveling of her relationship with Lindsey Buckingham, and Mick Fleetwood, whose marriage to Jenny Boyd was fracturing under pressure, found themselves pulled into an irresistible, chaotic orbit. Their romance wasn't built on still waters. It was fire meeting wind during a storm. Their connection ignited during an era where platinum records and fraying nerves collided nightly. Fleetwood Mac was the world's biggest band, but behind the shimmering album covers were shattered hearts and whispered betrayals. Every lyric, every harmony carried the weight of real turmoil, and Stevie and Mick's secret bond added another explosive layer. Hooked by the passion of stolen moments and studio confessions, they blurred the lines between heartbreak and harmony. Yet, as intoxicating as it was, their affair came with a price that haunted the entire band. What was once a creative symphony began to splinter. Buckingham, watching his ex entwined with another bandmate, was forced to channel pain into performance. The emotional wreckage reverberated through the group, forcing them to build musical gold from emotional ruin. And still, Fleetwood and Nicks refused to walk away completely. Even after their romantic chapter closed, the remnants of that connection lived on in every note they played side by side. Against all odds, they transformed a complicated past into a resilient friendship, bound by music, legacy, and forgiveness. But just when the dust seemed to settle, another whirlwind began. In the wake of Fleetwood, Nicks found herself drawn to someone who mirrored her energy in almost cosmic fashion: Don Henley of the Eagles. It was 1977, and both artists were flying high. Fleetwood Mac's Rumors had just rocked the charts, and the Eagles were dominating airwaves with their crisp California sound. When Stevie and Don crossed paths, it was more than chemistry. It was creative combustion. They were musical royalty, equally magnetic on stage, and equally tormented by the demands of the spotlight. Their love was as intense as it was short-lived, packed into stolen moments between sold-out shows and recording sessions. But beneath the glamour, a bombshell moment threatened to derail everything. Stevie discovered she was pregnant. That revelation sent shockwaves through a relationship already straining under pressure. The choices that followed were agonizing. They were both at the height of their careers, with every hour committed to music, touring, and image. The thought of parenthood in that context felt like rewriting the script of their lives. And so, with a heavy heart, Nicks made a deeply personal decision that would leave a permanent mark. It became a silent scar, never forgotten. It wasn't just the end of a relationship. It was the end of what might have been. That turning point didn't just fracture a romance. It echoed through Nicks's songwriting for decades. Her voice carried the weight of what she gave up, weaving vulnerability into tracks that still shatter audiences. Henley, too, felt the loss. Their bond became a memory wrapped in melody, haunting, poetic, and unfinished. But the story of Stevie Nicks was never one of surrender. It was of evolution. Enter Jimmy Iovine, the producer who didn't just hear Stevie's voice, he understood it. By the early 1980s, Nicks was no longer just the queen of Fleetwood Mac. She was launching into the stratosphere with her solo career, and Iovine was the architect behind some of the most iconic sounds of the decade. Their collaboration on Belladonna wasn't just a musical milestone, it was the spark of something deeper. Late-night studio sessions turned into something more. They weren't just shaping songs, they were shaping each other. Iovine became the one who translated Stevie's emotion into sonic perfection. Tracks like Edge of 17 weren't just hits, they were confessions. The trust between them birthed a creative alchemy few ever achieve. But it wasn't without consequence. The deeper their emotional entanglement grew, the more they had to balance fame, ambition, and affection. Stevie was still tethered to Fleetwood Mac, while Iovine juggled projects with rock's biggest stars. Fame doesn't leave space for quiet moments, and their bond was tested by the pace of their lives. Eventually, the romantic flame dimmed, but professionally they remained linked. Iovine's fingerprints are all over Nick's early solo work, and her confidence as a solo artist can be traced back to the faith he placed in her. Even now, decades later, the echoes of that relationship can be felt in Stevie's continued reign as rock royalty. And Iovine? He parlayed that era into a billion-dollar legacy. Financially, both have soared. Stevie Nicks, once entangled in emotional and creative battles, now stands atop a fortune estimated at over $120 million. Her catalog remains one of the most valuable in rock, with a significant portion sold in a recent multi-million-dollar deal. She owns a sprawling compound in Pacific Palisades, a 1930s-style Spanish villa, with ocean views, private gardens, and a recording sanctuary. Her real estate empire also includes a historic mansion in Phoenix and a seaside retreat in Maui. She travels on private charters favoring Gulfstream G555s for their long-range comfort and luxury. Her garage tells another story of prestige. A classic Mercedes SL Roadster, a blacked-out Range Rover autobiography, and a Bentley Continental GT. Her collection of Cartier and vintage Rolex watches are subtle nods to her refined taste. Quiet elegance over loud excess. Meanwhile, Jimmy Iovine's empire is staggering. From co-founding Interscope Records to partnering in Beats Electronics alongside Dr. Dre, Iovine turned his producer's ear into an investor's eye. He's now worth over $1 billion and owns a multi-home portfolio including a Beverly Hills estate and a tech-forward mansion in Malibu. His car collection features a McLaren 720S, a Tesla Model X Plaid, and a vintage Porsche 911. Private jets? He has fractional ownership in a Bombardier Global 7500, the gold standard in celebrity air travel. And still, with all the glitz, the echoes of those relationships linger. Because what we remember most aren't just the hit songs or the Grammy wins, it's the unspoken stories behind them. Stevie and Mick, Stevie and Don, Stevie and Jimmy. Each connection a chapter, each chapter a song. In a world where fame often disguises pain, Stevie Nicks has turned heartbreak into harmony. The world knows her as the velvet-voiced enchantress of Fleetwood Mac, but behind the glitter and guitars lies a soul shaped by grief, longing, and relentless reinvention. Her marriage to Kim Anderson in the wake of her best friend Robin's death wasn't born from passion. It was born from grief, desperation, and a need to hold on to something familiar in a time when everything else was crumbling. Their decision to marry only 3 months after Robin's passing left their inner circle in shock. Friends whispered, fans speculated, but Nicks later revealed the truth. It was her attempt to become a guardian for Robin's child, to honor a memory that haunted her. Yet even the most noble intentions can unravel under the weight of unresolved sorrow. Their union, emotionally charged and tragically short-lived, ended after just 8 months, leaving Nicks once again alone, but not defeated. She channeled that loss into her music, letting each lyric carry the weight of what she couldn't say out loud. That's where Stevie truly thrives, in the silence between notes, where real emotions hum louder than any spotlight. But just as the past shaped her, so did her later love with Joe Walsh. It was a relationship that many never saw coming but changed her forever. She often described Walsh as her great, lost love, a man whose quiet strength and musical brilliance matched her own wild spirit. They weren't just two rock legends colliding. They were kindred souls, each battered by fame, addiction, and the chaos of the stage. They created magic in the studio and found solace in each other's arms. But the pressure of public life and their personal demons eventually drove them apart. Still, unlike the explosive breakups that colored so much of Stevie's past, this one ended not with bitterness, but with profound respect. Here's where the story takes a powerful turn. Their separation didn't destroy their bond. It transformed it. Walsh remained her confidant, his influence echoing in her melodies long after their romance faded. For Nicks, love wasn't just a feeling, it was a muse. And Joe Walsh, in many ways, was the muse that haunted her for decades. When she sang of heartbreak, of longing, of lessons learned in the shadows, his silhouette danced between the lines. And perhaps that's why audiences still cling to her music. It's not just entertainment, it's therapy disguised as poetry. Her life story is also a masterclass in financial resilience. Unlike many artists who've seen fortunes rise and fall like chart rankings, Nicks has quietly built a financial empire that rivals her legendary career. Her current estimated net worth stands around $120 million, with major spikes in value after selling a share of her publishing catalog for an estimated $100 million. But that's just the beginning. Nicks' real estate holdings include a $14 million compound in Pacific Palisades, with sweeping views of the California coastline, and a Scottsdale retreat in Arizona, where she often escapes the madness. Her taste in luxury cars reflects a timeless class. Mercedes S-Class sedans and a vintage Jaguar remain favorites in her collection. She's been spotted wearing Rolex Datejusts and vintage Cartier timepieces, classic, understated symbols of elegance and endurance. What's even more intriguing is her quiet dive into strategic investments. Through savvy advisors, Nicks owns portions of boutique music publishing firms, licensing startups, and fashion labels tailored toward mature women. A nod to her loyal fan base who've grown with her. She's never been about flashy endorsements or chaotic ventures. Instead, she's opted for measured moves, prioritizing control and legacy over headlines. She reportedly carries robust insurance policies, not just for her health and touring demands, but even for her voice. A multi-million-dollar policy safeguarding the asset that built her empire. Now here's a hidden gem most fans don't know. Her private jet isn't about luxury. It's about recovery. After years of airport stress and chaotic schedules, her decision to charter a Dassault Falcon 2000 wasn't just indulgent, it was therapeutic. It's part of her post-rehab commitment to controlling her environment, reducing stress, and protecting her well-being while on the road. And it's just one example of how Nicks has turned her wealth into wellness. There's a powerful financial lesson buried in her journey. Emotional trauma can be fuel if channeled into purpose. Nicks didn't let heartbreak derail her. She turned it into equity. From her publishing deals to her merchandise lines, she retained ownership and built her brand on authenticity. From Stevie Nicks's poetic pain to the legacies that shaped generations, Hollywood never stops surprising us. If you loved diving into these wild journeys, hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. We've got even more explosive stories coming soon. Next up, a shocking Hollywood transformation you won't believe. Until then, remember, legends never fade. They just remix their stories into timeless hits.